Hello, and back to the Hive this week, and a slightly different format for today. We're joined by Lorna Leeson, Joe Dodds, and me, Jo Moffat, and we're going to have a bit of a discussion around an article that we saw in the press this week, an announcement from Twitter. And Twitter have said to their people that opening offices will be our decision. When and if our employees come back will be theirs. And we thought it would be interesting to discuss and see what we think about that. How practical is that? Is that a good idea? What do we think about it? So, Lorna, do you want? What's your take on that?
I've got two takes. So one is brilliant for them. I think that's a real example of putting trust in employees and an adult-to-adult working environment that really trusts people and gives them the flexibility to choose how and where they work best for them. I think that's fantastic from a cultural point of view. I think it's also a nice bit of PR for Jack Dorsey, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think it's great and a great model for white-collar working environments for office-based people. I think we need to be really careful not to forget that there are probably 75% of our workers in the UK who aren't office-based, who need to go to a physical work environment to do whatever it is they do. And it was interesting, there was a bit of a qualifying statement at the bottom of that article, which was if they're in a role and a situation where they can work elsewhere, and if not, the office will be welcoming and safe for them.
Yes.
So he really qualified that, this is your choice, but if you need to be in, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And it will be safe.
Yeah,
So
I noticed that. I thought that was really important, that our offices will be their warm and welcoming selves. And I thought, how lovely, what a lovely concept that was.
How many offices could you say that of as well?
Yeah,
not warm and welcoming.
Yes, and safe. No, you're right. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? That whole thing about people who are not. It's very easy to sort of just glibly talk about people. Everyone's working from home. Well, they're not.
Yeah.
They really are not. Some time ago on the Engage for Success radio show, I had somebody on talking about flexible working and the importance of it, and how organizations, I sort of challenged her to say, well, how do you make that work in a company where people traditionally are expected to be present, like call centers, for example. And she was sort of talking about the technology now that really does enable people to determine their shifts, log their shifts, book their shifts, and actually work in a flexible manner. That a few years ago you just never would have thought about, really. So Joe, what's your take on that? I know you found the quote, didn't you? So
yeah,
it struck a chord with you.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to see it. And as you say, I mean, I keep banging on in every video we do about the importance of treating people individually and in the way that they want, not in the way that you think they want, and not creating this sort of wonderful scenario that you think sounds great, but in the end they don't. So I think, as you say, that the fact that they're saying you can work from the office and you can work from home, and actually we're not going to force that on you either way, is really good. And my husband's working from home, and they've been having discussions about the fact that he's going to be doing that moving forwards, and perhaps one day in the office a week. And he's not actually that keen on it. He doesn't like, or so he says, working from home. I think I've said this before, I think he's doing fine, but they've taken it the other way, and actually that's two quite distinct policies, isn't it, for the same thing, sort of, which is that the offices could be available, but actually we're not going to make them available, or we are going to make them available. It's quite different, and even though that both of those would be termed flexibility. So going back to the thing about people getting what they want, this really gives that opportunity. So I really like it. So well done Twitter, I'd say.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it, because I mean, it's what this whole crisis has shown, it's absolutely blown a gaping great hole in this sort of idea that flexible working is somehow just for working mums. I mean, we know it's not, but it's just blown that to pieces. And it's interesting, again, we've already seen before this an increase in men taking and applying for flexible working. We had a radio show, again, Engage for Success radio show conversation about that a few months ago as well. So we were already beginning to see an increase in interest amongst males asking to work flexibly, which is something that hasn't really happened very much up until the last 18 months, 2 years.
And isn't that the point?
Yeah.
So I was just saying, isn't that the point, that it's, oh, my voice is going, that it's flexibility, it's flexible, not working from home.
Yes.
So we tend to conflate the two, but actually flexibility could mean that you're working from a coffee shop, or you're working full-time in an office, or you're working from your client's office, or whatever. Flexibility, we, especially now, we're sort of saying, oh, it's the same as working from home, and actually that isn't what we mean, is it?
It's a mindset shift, isn't it? I think that we're talking about, and I think we're starting to see the phrase rebuild better come through. I thought one thing that was interesting at the end of that CNN article was it sort of explained the mindset challenge for me. The journalist had said, well, of course, you've got all these people working from home versus opening up the economy. So there's a mindset that some organisations and individuals have shifted to, which is humans need the flexibility and the autonomy to design and shape work that suits best for them, and that's when you get the best output from them and then the best value from them, versus the kind of the old mindset which is stuck in the industrial age of we need to see them, measure them, control them, manage them, and that's how we know they're doing productive work.
Absolutely. And this whole ethos of presenteeism, inputs, these are all the things we measure. Well, actually, no, what we should be measuring is the outputs. And if we're setting clear objectives, if we commit to deliver clear objectives and trust our people to do the work they need to do, where they need to do it, when they need to do it, that's got to be a better solution for everyone.
But it is quite often driven by the experience of the people making those sort of top level decisions, isn't it? So I saw something on LinkedIn, I think yesterday, of it was a guy saying, oh, when are we going to be able to open the office again? And I looked a bit more closely, and he was a lawyer, and I was thinking, well, you clearly want the office reopened, and maybe you want everyone in the office, but you probably can quite easily operate your business without everyone being in the office. And yet that was the sort of message. And if that's the sort of chief executive and the senior team wanting everyone in, immediately, you haven't got that potential flexibility. So I guess it does take a different sort of leader, even if it doesn't suit them, to understand that other people, can work in a different way, in a better way for them.
It's a new type of leadership, isn't it? It's a way that is command and control.
Absolutely.
Trust. And it's not this kind of parental view of leadership, but actually, you're an adult working with other adults who can make their own decisions.
Which picks up on one of the things I think we touched on in the very, very, very first Hive that we had, where we were talking about emotional intelligence, and recognising that actually for some of our leaders and senior leaders in organisations, this is a really difficult situation for them, because they're used to the presenteeism of their people around them. Their validation comes from being visibly present and being seen by their people to be part of the exec, and this is a very, very different thing. So it's interesting, isn't it?
And to pick up on what Lorna said about the sort of white collar, blue collar type sort of scenario, there's a tendency, if you just think about it simply, to think that this sort of stuff can't happen in organisations where they are more frontline and more sort of needed, and aren't working in an office, more needed at the sort of coalface, as it were. But I saw another article this week about Mercadona, the supermarket company in Spain, who I've followed along with via a podcast I listened to a little while ago, and it was just really interesting. You think supermarkets, they are key workers, they're there, they've got to be there, they're doing more than they've ever done, they're recruiting and everything else. What the founder of Mercadona has done, he's put his full-time staff onto a 4-day week, but on full pay until the crisis is over. So in effect, he's trying to reduce their contact with the issue, make it less stressful for them because they're not working as many hours, but he's not dropping their pay in any way, which is quite a fundamental thing, particularly for a supermarket company with that many employees.
I was reading the article as well. It's really, really inspiring. I mean, not only is he doing that, he's giving them a 20% bonus to recognise the extra work, the kind of stress and everything that they've done, and he has given up his annual salary and all his dividends
and his bonus, and that's like billions, isn't it? Well, I don't know what it is. It's like
9.7
million is his annual salary. Never mind his bonus. Yeah, exactly. And it just sounds amazing. But I listened to a podcast a couple of years ago, and it was a sort of academic study of retail, and they were one of the organisations that were held up as real exemplars. And they talked about very much when crisis hits, whether it's a downturn in the economy or I guess, you know, now, not that it was predicted, that Mercadona and companies like that actually focus on their customers and their staff. So they make sure they're well stocked and they treat their employees well, and they really hunker down with those people and tell the shareholders that they're just going to have to ride it out and wait for it to improve. And actually what happens is, as they come out of recession or this particular situation, they will recover quicker than the other retailers and the other similar organisations who haven't done that, who have tried to focus on profit and actually in effect cut a lot of the other loyalty and whatever else from there. Yeah, so it's really interesting that that's what I'd heard before, and now I've just seen a great example of that. And it seems like the sort of thing that companies can't easily do, but he's done it. So
yeah, fascinating. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I was just going to give a plug to this. Don't normally plug books on the Hive, but Grow the Pie. I just started to read this, and it's by Alex Edmonds, and he's Professor of Economics at London Business School, Professor of Finance, sorry, at London Business School. And he talks about exactly that. It's about growing the pie. And you can either be a pie slicer as a business, where you're looking, the pie stays the same and you're trying to get a bigger share. You'll make your slice bigger, but inevitably that's at the expense of other stakeholders within the organization, which include not just shareholders, employees, the community you work in, the country that you contribute to. Or you can look to grow the pie and actually look to increase and add value and to grow people's share by growing the pie overall and adding value to society, which so far really, really good read. And what's interesting is utterly underpinned by that rigorous economic evidence. Not just, does this feel good, but actually can we prove that approaching a business in this way works?
Yeah. So your homework, Jo, is to bring back some thoughts from that for a future video, please.
All right.
Indeed. And I was just going to close by saying I think it's a brave call to action, isn't it? Because of course it's, if you're afraid, which everyone is at the moment and business leaders are at the moment, what you try and do is you look to protect your interests and stay safe, and you look to the ways that you've always done things.
Yes.
And what the likes of Twitter and Mercadona are doing is saying there might be a better, different way if you just shift your thinking.
Yeah. And I think we in our hearts believe that, and it's good to see some real economic rigorous evidence to demonstrate that that's the case as well. So lovely. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Lorna, Jo. Thanks for listening, and see you next time. Bye-bye.